by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh, by the rivers of Babylon.
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hood section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High King of the universe for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Giving all glory to the Most High God for us, for protecting us, for guiding us, for keeping us, for allowing us to be here once again, waking up this morning with everything functioning properly, praying that the Most High God be with all of you who are listening to this, and all of you who support the channel. We ask you to share, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell after you subscribe so that anytime we upload any new videos or we have any live videos, you will be notified. Thank you all for allowing us to reach your homes, even on early Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there, and for allowing this program to be able to be a factor in your lives. So we pray that the Most High God will protect each and every one of you, and that the Creator will allow you to be blessed in all the endeavors of your mind that you desire in righteousness. So, as we move along, we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
All right, great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, let's give praise to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Due respect on the platform I'm on, the D.C.B. channel platform, spiritually a chief prince in every area, being Saska, to the host chief Yisrael, to the princes, chiefs, Kohanim, brother, Maureen, brothers and sisters, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and the early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to start off with the Adonai Sabbatai Titak Yagiti of Theaka Olo Dama lips and my mouth to declare praise. This week with I'll be going over and highlighting certain points of Mishpat Yithro, and which is one of the most considered one of the most holiest sections of the Chumash, because it actually got the revelation that we had from Mount Sinai as a people. So it starts from the 18th chapter of Exodus, and it concludes at the 20th chapter. And it's a lot of various insights in there. And we have what was famously called the Ten Commandments, but as we refer to it, it's a set of hadibro, because you actually have more than 10, commands in there. And so it's not 10 commandments, it's a misnomer as they translate it. That's why when we say asara hadibro, which means 10 statements or 10 matters that's being discussed there, and I'm gonna highlight just a few of those as we go. But last week we left off before I got a chance to conclude in the previous sidra. So we'll be picking it up from the 17th chapter. I just want to bring up back again 17th chapter. I read and highlight. I talked about some of it just to bring us up to speed, because it's going to be relative and going to the next portion. So before I get there again, we was talking about the last thing I was speaking about was manna extensively, and one of the things is some of the miracles concerning manna and some of the terminologies that they talk about concerning manna. And one of the things, and also a prophecy, pretty much, which is a strange statement before Mount Torah, when we got the manna, which is 30 days out since the first Pesach Seder, we got the exact date when manna start coming down, and we have a date when it actually concludes. So but what is stated here is that some nuances are that I'd like for you to focus on and consider before going to the 17th chapter of that Exodus, is that taken from the 16th chapter and the 32nd verse. 32nd verse, after it describes what manna tastes like, what it looked like. 32nd verse of the 16th chapter, it says, and Moses said, "This is a thing which the Lord had commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt." And Moses said unto Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations, as the Lord commanded Moses." So Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. We know this, before we get to the 35th verse, as I said last time, this couldn't be done until basically a year from the first Pesach. almost a year, because we know the tabernacle was not erected and set up at that time when the manna first came down. And it goes on to say further, 35th verse, and the children of Israel did eat the manna 40 years until they came to a land inhabited. You mean to tell me out there where they were for 40 years, nobody else existed or was living out there? Normally, when people travel, have a travel route, sometimes along the travel route, people camp out, settle. But it's a land that's not inhabited. So we know that it was a miraculous journey, and then it says 40 years. We know that 40 years, God didn't say we're going to stay 40 years in the wilderness at this time. So, but it says only till we come to a land that's inhabited. So why would it take 40 years to go to a land that's inhabited? So it's like a subtle prophecy that you're going to wind up being out there for 40 years. And that's something that bears a lot of discussion until they came to the borders of the land of Canaan. Well, they know the land of Canaan wasn't that far off. Now, an omer is a 10th part of an ephah. So what was miraculous is that one omer was enough to sustain an individual throughout the whole day, where you don't have to, say, I got the hunger pains and anything like that. So this is a unique food that we're being fed with. But bear this in mind as we go into the very next sidra. But I want to finish this particular portion that we went into before. And it says, and 17th chapter, and all the congregation of the children of Israel journeyed from the wilderness of sin by their stages, according to the commandments of the Lord, and encamped in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. Wherefore the people strove with Moses and said, "Give us water that we may drink." And Moses said unto them, "Why strive ye with me? Wherefore do ye try the Lord?" And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, "Wherefore hast thou brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst?" Before I go into the 4th verse, I'm looking at the order, and I try to notice the thing. You're gonna kill me, and then you're gonna kill my children, and then you're gonna kill my cattle. Most people that's a parent that's really concerned would say, you're going to slay my children, you're going to cause my children to die, because most children are weaker than the parents, so therefore, if anybody going to pass on first, it would be the children. But they focus and centered on themselves first, and then talk about the children. And then they talk about the livestock. We know livestock is just a lot longer, but thirst is a horrible way to go. If you're going to die of thirst, that's a horrible way to go. So just, consider some of the things they say, and when they murmur, and then they're going to make clear they state what they have to say, because murmuring isn't, sometimes you don't want people to understand what you're saying. But now, nope, we got to really build up, a case, and you can, and they build up a following, so they make it clear. And Moses understood that. So when we get to the 4th verse, it said, and Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people? They are almost ready to stone me. Ain't that something? Moses understood what it was leading to. They're ready to actually kill him. And yet he said, you're murmuring against the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river, take it in thy hand, and go and behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Before I get to the 7th verse, I want to focus on this here. One, he's taking the same rod he had all the time. Same rod he smote the river with. But it don't say the rod that he stretched out over raised up his rod, was in his hand, raised up the rod, and he crossed the Yam Suf. He didn't strike that. And we know Aaron's the actual one that struck the river, with the rod, where it turned to blood, one of the plagues that hit Egypt. All right. And so, did the people deserve drink? Yes. When the people thirst for water, yes. They thirst for water, and they was concerned about, a casualty they could have behind water. Now, several times water tend to be a very, major thing of complaint, more often than anything else, in the beginning, in the early stages. So when we look at this area here, did God was opposed to the people having water? No. So you wonder, will say, okay, Moses, I got a concern. People brought this concern about water. Lord, I got a concern about about water for these people. What should I tell them? That's easy for me to say, because I'm looking, at the situation, but it would seem normal. So and I'm setting up a stage about, shouldn't he be concerned? Because if they have a lack of water, shouldn't Moses also have a lack of water? So let's go further and see what it says. And the 7th verse, and the name of the place was called Massa and Meribah, because of the striving of the children of Israel, and because they tried the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Sometimes people want to know if God is there, but more so, whether God is with you, you got to always remember to be with God. So a lot of people want to take God with them, but God is not going wherever you want to go. It's best to go where God wants you to be, and so God's not following a people. A people supposed to follow a God. So we got to consider those things as we go further. In the 8th verse, it says, then came Amalek and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said unto Joshua, choose out men and go out and fight with Amalek tomorrow. I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. Now, what is unique, before I go into the 10th verse, is that one, we discover an individual that we didn't know existed prior to this time, which was Joshua. And later on, we're going to find out that that wasn't the way his name originally was. But he's called Joshua now, and introduced to this guy. And he had to be somewhat famous. And those that's, read, more of the history will realize that this same Joshua was out the tribe of Ephraim. And as I brought out last time about the tribe of Ephraim, they had left to go back to the land ahead of time. So now, and they got defeated and wiped out. Those that left ahead of time, which I brought out when you go into the book of Chronicles. So now you have an Ephraimite that set up to encounter their first battle, at the time, against a people that actually attacked them. And what Amalek attacked them for? Not causeless hatred. It was causeless hatred. I know they have a lot of commentaries and and midrash concerning the attack, but basically, as we see that we're in a place uninhabited, we're in a place that belongs to no one, and yet they come out their way to attack us from a distance. And then it goes on to say that Moses said, "This is where I'm going to be, on the top of a hill with the rod of God in his hand." It was never called the rod of God until after striking the rock. Now, I want to bring our attention to a couple of things here. Is that when we talk about Moses not entering the land of Israel, crossing the Jordan in the Promised Land 40 years later, he had struck the rock then. So that means twice in our history, we was getting water from a rock. But the first time is this particular time here, is that Moses had elders traveling with him. And God told him that I will be standing at the spot where you're supposed to be. So it teaches a lot of subliminal messages that we always should move towards God and not move away from the Creator. So God told Moses he could be right at that spot on that rock where he's supposed to strike it at. Something that never was told 40 years later. Then certain details are left out. Certain things was done. It was a different manifestation. The Creator don't have to repeat miracles. He could always create new ones. And so this is some of the things to bear in mind, when we look over the history of it. And because he's able to strike the rock and bring on water, quench the people's thirst, and that was a test, and they strove with God, which, they thinking they're striving with Moses being they thinking him being a poor navigator. What we learn here is that the Creator himself will always provide, but he also set little trials and tribulations to see how, he knows how sincere you are, for you to discover more about yourself. So when we look at that, he named that rod the rod of God. God didn't name it, that's what he called it, And so, and it was just described as such. So the 10th verse. So Joshua did as Moses had said, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. but Moses' hand was heavy. And they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat down. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. All right, before I go into the 13th verse, it's a lot of interesting points that I like to focus on going forward. Is that when we look at the episode here, Moses, Aaron, and Hur. Hur is another guy to introduce, and he have a grandson that's very one of the sons and descendants is Bazel, the one that actually worked on the Mishkan, one of the chief architects of the Mishkan. Or builder, I should say builder, not architect himself, because he didn't design it. It was designed by the Creator, and he just built what the Creator had designed. So I like to make that correction, going forward. And what is interesting is that you wonder, his hands is up, Israel's prevailing, and when it's down, they're losing. And then they recognize that those two guys on each side, Aaron and Hur, and they put a stone, they move a stone and put it under him, and he sat down. One, how big was the stone? You got to ask, how big was that stone? Two, sitting on a stone is not comfortable. Some of us don't like to sit on a plain wooden stool, or those that live in brownstones. You might sit on a stoop a little bit, the stoop staircase that might be cement and everything like that. Whether it's summertime or wintertime, you start to squirming after a while. So imagine that he's sitting on an object for a period of basically a day. Imagine those guys, Aaron and Hur, is on both sides of them for a period of a day. All right, and that means that's a long battle. It says steady his hands to the going down of the sun. That's a long time to be having his hands propped up like that up in the air. And why his hands propped up in the air would cause them to win, and him just relaxing his hands down would cause them to lose. Those are a lot of discussions that you might come forth with, and it says, it used the term Yehudah Emunah, hands of faith. His hands of faith, hands of truth. That's what it referred to. You just read mostly in the English here, steady hand, he steadied his hands, but in the Hebrew it refers to Yehudah Emunah, which is hands of faith. So to hold your hands up for the all highest, it's hands of faith, the hands of truth. There's a lot of areas you could go to and discuss on those particular areas, on that premise alone. And then the 13th verse, it says, and Joshua discomfited Amalekites, discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. All right, even discomfort them, but it didn't say he slayed anybody. This one time you don't find actual casualties. Now, it discomfited them. They had swords. You would figure so many people wind up dead. And it's strange that it's not mentioned about how many casualties they had. And even though talk about how many casualties, it said discomfort but not slain. So this is some of the things to consider. And there's a lot of commentaries in reference to that, but I'm just saying, just consider those areas there. And the 14th verse, it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in the book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua, for I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. All right. So now, before I get into the 15th verse of that same chapter, we know Moses was told to write something down. this the first time he's actually told to write anything down. You know, we know we got a law concerning the memorial of the Passover. We know we got a law concerning what we're going to do with manna. But now, here it is, the first thing he's actually told to write down is about this encounter with Amalek. And you say, well, wow, that's pretty interesting as we look at that, going forward. I'm not going to elaborate on it, in depth, but I'm just saying that I'm just pointing out these things for discussion. And then as we get into the 15th verse, and it says, and Moses built an altar and called the name of it Adonai Nasik. And he said, the hand upon the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generations. So from generation to generation, we're going to have war. You always want to, later on, remember to blot out, but yet you constantly having war from generation to generations. So if I blot something out, I get rid of it, then is it another generation coming? Or is it metaphorically? What concept that we have here? Because if I eradicate this today, I shouldn't see it next week or next year. It should be gone. So what's being presented here? And then what's interesting is that when Moses is the first one that actually built the altar, though we had a sacrifice concerning the Passover is considered a sacrifice, we just refer to it as a slaughter in Egypt. And this is the first time we have an altar built, but it don't say what kind of sacrifices was done on the altar. What was done there? We could imagine he might have offered some sacrifices as a Thanksgiving, whatever the case is at that time, Moses himself. But this is the first time you find an Israelite building an altar, and we get no real description of what's going on concerning that altar. And I just want to bring that out as we go forward. Now we're going to the Sidra Yithro. And as we go into the book of the Sidra Yithro, one of the interesting things about Yithro is that we have a Sidra named after an individual person. And when we read the Sidra named after this individual person, then we say, okay, we have a Sidra considered Kaye Sarah, right? The life of Sarah. That's the name of the particular Sidra. Then we get, Wayaki, but Wayaki is concerning the life of Jacob, and Jacob lived, but it's not named after him. We don't have nothing named after Abraham. We don't have nothing named after Isaac. We don't even have a Sidra, though Moses is a major character throughout this period of time, and the chief of all prophets. We don't have a Sidra named after him, in particular. So we got a Sidra named after Pinchas, which is a unique thing itself. We got a Sidra after a guy that's not good, which is called, Korah. We got a Sidra named after another guy that's, and that was an Israelite. So we got one Israelite that's good, Pinchas, and one Israelite that's not so good, Korah. And then we got a Sidra named after a stranger outside of Balak. So the Sidra named Balak is a guy who had genuine fear of Israel, that was one became an enemy of Israel. And when we had that particular Sidra concerning Balak, who happened to be an enemy of Israel, like I said, we have the Sidra of Korah, who happened to be an Israelite that was wicked. So when we think about that, and then I'm just want to bring out one more interesting book. We have a book with Ruth, and I was talking to around certain brothers yesterday. Is that Ruth herself is a unique character, in itself, because Ruth, the book of Ruth, which is what most interesting, the character of Ruth, not even just dealing with the book of Ruth, just the character, the woman herself, Ruth, she proved to be a unique individual that actually was interested in this God. All right, but I'm gonna get back to that in a moment. So, in the 18th chapter, it says, "Now Yithro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that the God had done for Israel, for Moses and for Israel, his people, and how that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her away, and her 2 sons, of whom the name of the one was Gershon, for he said, I've been a stranger in a strange land, and the name of the other, Eleazar, for the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh." Before I get into the 5th verse, it seemed like it should be named in reverse. If I left as a fugitive because my life is at stake, then when I'm able to get a son, and if I'm going to name him concerning my encounter, it should be my encounter from death. Why now I point to a land where I was a stranger first, and then after, concerning, God saving me from the sword of Pharaoh. So he recognized that he was saved prior, to his commission of going down into Egypt. And that's something to think about, that God saved him prior to going down on his mission that he was reluctant to take, to go ahead and bring this information to Pharaoh. And God said, all the people that sought your life are dead. But that's prior. So, we learn a lot of stuff here. And what do you mean I was a stranger there? Because we know Midian, they're not Israelites, but they're descendants of Abraham. And for those that might think, I heard this argument, I meant to bring it out in the past. I know some views concerning Jethro, that some views would say he's just a priest of Midian, but he was not a Midianite. He was actually might have been Ethiopian. Well, you're going to find in various parts when they talk about the descendants of Jethro, and they're going to talk about his, these people that we have issue, we was cool with in some places, that they called them, a Midianite by nationality. So that would let you know that the descendants is still called Midianites. And these are descendants of, and they tell you that these are the same ones of Moses, the descendants of Moses' father-in-law, and they're called Midianites. Then Jethro was a Midianite, as far as I could see, and not an Ethiopian. But, you could do the research, within it, but you got examples of that in the book, itself. But as we go further and look at this here, when you're talking about a stranger there, you could say, well, okay, was he referred to Egypt? Did he have brothers? Yes. He had a mother, and he had a brother, and he had a sister. He knew his family. He raised up in the palace. So, which there he became a stranger? Was he a stranger because he's raised up in Pharaoh's house, knowing that he don't belong as an Egyptian? He's not an Egyptian, and he raised up in Pharaoh's house. So he considered that to be a stranger, even though I'm there living well. I'm a stranger here. I'm not part of the family. Or when he grew up, to go see his brethren out there, the burdens of his brethren after he grew up, and was concerned about their well-being, and he helped them, and he come back and try to further assist between a quarrel between brothers. did they act like he's a stranger? You know, when they talk about pretty much, who are you? You know, you think to be, judge, jury, execution of us and kill us like they killed the Egyptian? So was he estranged from his brothers, which is a lot of talk concerning that when you compare Aharon and Moses, because Aaron the Levite, and you don't refer to Moses as a Levite, but yet we know Aaron and Moses are blood brothers. So what do you mean by my first son is a stranger? Because I was a stranger there. So it's a lot of ways to go, and there's a lot of discussion concerning that. All right. So when we go, and then talk about the help later. So, and because the drama of them leaving happened afterwards, in the chronological order. And it goes on to say in the 5th verse, and Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness where he was encamped at the mount of God. And he said unto Moses, I, thy father-in-law, Jethro, am coming unto thee, and thy wife, and her 2 sons with her. All right. Now, the possession, Jethro said, and the books opens up and talk about that, he came, with the wife, with Moses' wife, right? And this is what Jethro himself supposed to say. I, the father-in-law, am coming unto thee with thy wife and her 2 sons with her. Well, shouldn't it say, like I said in verse 5, and Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife unto Moses. And you notice the order. I came with his sons and his wife unto Moses into the wilderness. But when they come to the presentation, it talks about, I, thy father-in-law, Jethro, am coming unto thee, and thy wife and her 2 sons with her. Why now is just considered her sons as opposed to his sons in the beginning? What is, what's the relationship? We know they're supposed to be his son as well as a son through, his wife. But why the change? And we don't read about too much good coming from Moshe's sons, pretty much, the pedigree. We read about Aaron, his pedigree, his wife, and the family tree she's from, and yet we read about Moses, his wife, and the pedigree, that she's from. And we know that Aaron's children become more in the footsteps of their father, as well as Moshe, the uncle. So these children evidently didn't follow too much of their father's footsteps. And it says, 7th verse, and Moses went out to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other of their welfare. And they came into the tent. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. Before I go to the 9th verse, what I find so important before I get into the 9th verse is that you actually have the first Haggadah being told by Moshe. First Haggadah. It ain't Pesach, but he reiterating the exodus from Egypt to his father. Now, Jethro heard. Now, what we find is that in the previous Sidra, we talk about, one of the things in the previous Sidra, we talk about that we left off with Amalek attacking, and then, we had to fight against Amalek. Later on in the history, we find out that they used to attack us, but we have a fight with Amalek. Jethro heard when, all the news, all that, God had done. That's why he brought his wife, his daughter, to Moses' wife, and the children to Moses in the wilderness. And evidently, he had to have a serious escort to go that way, to travel into a spot to meet with his son-in-law. And it said after he sent her back, what is interesting is that the Egyptian Times and the Canaanite Chronicles, that news was worldwide, how these people had left, And so that's insane. We find out that Jethro heard, like we get you post the news. Great, just the New York Times, this was happening. This the highlights of the day. Or the Chronicles. This is the events that happened in the land of Canaan. So this is newsworthy. If Jethro heard that, Amalek heard that, So it's worldwide news. Everybody else heard it. And then also, to let you know the news was so prevalent that 40 years later, Balak was still thinking about an old time reputation of that news, that chronicle, which became deep history 40 years later, that Balak said, I need to hire somebody spiritually to handle these people. So this is show you that all heathens are not the same. All non-Israelites, I should say. I shouldn't say heathen because that's more of a real negative terminology. So all non-Israelites are not bad. You got good people from every walk of life, from every nation that exists. So when we have people from every walk of life and every nation that exists, then some are going to be bad, some will be good, some will be for your support, and some going to be for your detriment. So Jethro himself was one that's for the detriment. I mean, for the good of the people, and Amalek was for the detriment. So as we go back down to the 9th verse of this particular portion, and Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, and that he had delivered them out of the hands of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who hath delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who hath delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know. That 11th verse, we got to pay attention. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods. Yea, for that they dealt proudly against them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering, sacrificed for God, and Aaron, for God, and Aaron came, and all the elders of Israel, to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. The reason I'm going to stop there for that, we got some things that make you say, At this time, we had manna. At this time, Jethro come, we already eating with manna. Or do we believe that he came, before we was eating manna? Well, when we look at the destinations that we took, and where they fought with the Amalekites, and where we had arrived, we know automatically that we eating manna at this particular time. So now, Jethro offered up a sacrifice to this God, a burnt offering, as we look at, and then Moses and Aaron, and all the elders, whoever they were at that time, which is different elders than we're going to talk about later, that they ate bread with Moses' father-in-law. So he brought enough bread for quite a few elders, not the whole nation, but for quite a few elders. And he sacrificed to the Creator. He made a sacrifice that was inviting of people more so than when Moses built the altar. We don't read anything. He just built the altar and just named it, blah, and whatever he did. But here you have an engagement. The name Jethro means to, add. So you have actually a strong engagement of people participating, where you don't read where great participation at the altar that Moses had, but you read about a great participation at the sacrifice that Jethro had. And you're gonna say, wow, but I just want to point those things out as we go forward. And then when we look further, that picking up here, and I'm gonna try to speed it up a little bit because I want to get to the Decalogue itself. And it said, 13th verse, and it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood about Moses from morning until evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, what is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou self alone, and all the people stand about thee from morning to evening? Before I go into that, Jethro, first thing he said is that, what you doing to the people? He was concerned about the people first, though Moses' son-in-law. He said, this is what you're doing to the people here. And Jethro's there alongside, just watching. And, and then not only is he watching, he goes and say that, and he actually see what Moses doing, that he said, why are you sitting alone? Like, he's hearing all the cases that go there. All right. And all the people stand about thee from morning to evening. And all the people standing there, they hear it, man. And what Moses replied. And Moses said unto his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a matter, it cometh unto me, and I judge between a man and his neighbor, and I make them know the statutes of God and his laws. So before I go into the 17th verse, one of the things we got to look at is that, didn't Jethro hear what was going on? He's standing there alongside of him. He's an eyewitness, of the thing. And Moses telling him, this is what I'm doing. Now, what commandments or what laws they're learning? What is the issues that they can have at this particular time that they got to stand before Moses for this law so soon, before Mount Torah? And there's always conversion, a conversation, whether it was before Mount Torah or afterwards. But the views, I hold to is before the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And this is basically in the chronological order. So, and it says between the man and his neighbor. So my issues is not, only what God wanted us to do that Moses talking about, but he said, these guys got issues with one another. And I need to know how to settle the issues between this individual and that individual. Now you got to say, well, didn't all the Israelites leave Egypt wealthy? Didn't all of them spoil Egypt? Yes. And then when the Egyptians army came after them with a great host, and they, was drowned in the Yam Suf and washed, and the bodies washed ashore. What other issues could it be? That, a guy gonna have an issue with his neighbor? Because Israelites left wealthy, but maybe the mixed multitude didn't leave wealthy. So there's always one view, but you can always further discuss it amongst the teachers, is that when the Egyptians washed along the shore, all right, who gets the spoil? The descendants of the Egyptians that tagged along with us, the servants of the Egyptians that tagged along with us, or the Israelites that, who the Egyptians was destroyed for, in protection of the Israelites. Could that be an issue? Who the spoil belong to? God could say, I'm an Egyptian, that's an Egyptian, this Egyptian property. It belongs to us. Oh no, we're Israelites. Our God destroyed them for us. But then y'all take the spoil that you had and you asked for. You asked for certain things you was given. So what more do you want? So could it be an issue like that? I don't know. But whatever it is, Jethro looking at it and hearing different cases. And he hearing these different cases and he realized that that's not the right way to do things. But let's go further in the 17th verse. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, the thing that thou doest is not good. He criticized it. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and thy people. All right. And this people that is with thee, for the thing is too heavy for thee. All right. So it's not good. And this is what the damage you could actually do. All right. And it said, for the thing is too heavy for thee, saying you can realize that that's too much for you. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. I'm telling you, you're not capable. Can you imagine a man telling you, and you done met with God, God spoke with you, and he's telling you, you ain't capable of doing that by yourself. Hearken unto my voice, and I will give thee counsel, and God be with thee. Be for the people before God, and bring down the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them the statutes and the laws. Thou shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating unjust gain, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, and rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they should judge themselves. So shall they make it easier for thee, and bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and important, God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people also shall go to their place in peace. If I go to the 24th verse, that's so profound that we get what we call critics. That's the first C. All right, the first C is a critic, and we get a lot of that, and a critic just don't like what you're doing. Nothing seems to appeal to what you do. Then you get what you call a double C, constructive critic. A constructive criticism is a person saying, look, what you're doing ain't good. And I'm telling you that it's not good, so that you do not continue to do that. See, now the first critic just criticize it. Man, that ain't good, period. What you're doing ain't good, period. That's the first critic. That's the first C. The second one, constructive criticism. That ain't good. And I'm telling you this so you can stop doing that. All right, so I'm concerned about you stop doing it. Then you got the 3C critic. Constructive criticism with counsel. So that's the 3 C's. Constructive criticism and counsel. What you doing is not good. And I'm telling you this so you can stop doing that. And I'm going to counsel you how to implement it better for yourself. And then Jethro just said, look at it, bring it to God too as well. And so that the people and you be able to endure. And you can bring them to their place in peace. So we have very few 3C critics. We have 1C critics more often. And then you have a 2C critic every now, or the next level. But rarely you get a 3C critic. All right. If you don't like what I'm doing, okay. but that don't mean I'm gonna stop. But if you don't like what I'm doing, and because of constructive criticism, then you meant for me to stop doing it that way. Okay. But then you didn't give me a solution how to move on. So now when you give me you don't like what I'm doing and you want me to stop, so I'm doing it anyway, then you give me a solution how to move on, because now you're concerned about me. And it's the concern. So the ultimate constructive criticism is a person that is concerned about you. That's why they give you the counsel at the end. And they bring God and invoke in that. So that means that they want God to even bless you in your undertaking, and just that your methods is not correct. So that's one of the great things we learn from that, this area here. And we know that if we talk about thousands, justice delayed is no justice at all. And I'm just going to leave it right there, because I want to go into this last portion, 19th chapter, a little bit. Before we go into the 19th chapter, 26th verse, and it said, and they judged the people at all seasons, the hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way into his own land. So not only Jethro came and gave him advice and helped them out, you figure Moses should have understood that. He should have realized that. Why haven't dawned on him? Jethro brought his family back, letting you know that, hey, this is your family. Now, this is your wife. This is your children. Though they related to me, this is yours. They belong to you. Not like Laban, who said, the daughters and the children are mine, when he caught up with Jacob. Jethro saying, no, the daughters and the children are yours. More of a saintly thing, as opposed to what Laban did with Jacob. And Moses had sent the woman back, and he brought his family back at the time when it's most safe. After he heard, he said, okay, I can understand. I didn't stop him, because why would you bring your family into a situation that's not safe if you're on a mission for God? So he wind up, bringing the family, trying to bring the family together and bring them back into a man that he respect. And yet he still had to observe how the man functioned. He recognized the Creator. So he was a great mentor to Moses in that area there. Now, here it is that he learned about God from what he heard and realized that God is the God of all gods. And that's what he began to accept God himself as the God of all gods. So when we think about Jethro being an individual that recognized God from what he did concerning all the other gods that the Egyptians was proud in, not so much that he destroyed the Egyptians, but he showed and exhibit his power, not only to the Egyptians, but to make himself known throughout the world, which is God's purpose. And Jethro realized that this God is the God of all gods. Now, you figure being the descendant of Abraham, it shouldn't be a puzzle. It shouldn't be a puzzling thing. But even with Israelites had to learn and be reacquainted with the absolute power of God. When they even say, could he provide a table in the wilderness later? So when we think of Jethro himself, and I get back to Ruth accepted God and accepted the people, whether God accepted her and whether the people accepted her as well. She said, your God is my God, your people my people, and only death will separate me and you. So I'm gonna be around you, no matter whether you like me or not. I'm gonna appreciate you as family, whether you appreciate me or not. It sounds like some of us and some of our people, right? And I want to appreciate this God, whether God appreciate me or not. Now that's the most ultimate, appreciating God and not looking for God to do something for you, but appreciating him because he is God. Jethro, on the other hand, say, oh, now I understand because I seen what God did, but God did something for another people, not for Jethro himself. And he realized and appreciate that God is a God of deliverance. And God, can work with the lowly. So he was happy with that, because of what he realized now, that all the doctrines in the world, Jethro realized that one supreme being, that one God, that is such a revolution that he blessed the creator for what he did for somebody else. And sometimes we don't thank God for what he do for somebody else. We thank God more so for what he do for us, but we don't thank him for what he do for somebody else. And that a lot of times we don't pray that much and that hard for a person that's destitute to do better. We pray more so for ourselves to get better. And Jethro gives a different type of insight into that. And happily, this is why he's the sister is named after him. Now in the 19th verse, 19th chapter, excuse me, in the third month after the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. And when they were departed from Rephidim and were come into the wilderness of Sinai, they encamped in the wilderness, and there Israel encamped before the mount. And Moses went up, and I'm going to read this part out pretty much here quick, and went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus thou shalt say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you hearken unto my voice, and indeed keep my covenant, then ye shall be mine and my own treasure from among all the people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. The Creator tell us and give us motion, a peculiar treasure, a segula. That means our value is only to the individual that recognizes us, and which is the Creator. Said, we're not so great. So when Moses was told to tell the people that, and said, most brothers and sisters think, oh, we are kingdom of priests. The kingdom of priests comes with a prerequisite. If you're doing what the Creator wants you to do, then you could become a kingdom of priests. Other than that, you're not a kingdom of priests if we're doing everything else that that the Creator didn't want us to do. And if we're doing everything else that if we're doing things that the Creator didn't want us to do, then we're not a kingdom of priests. And that's why to be a kingdom priest come with requirements. It has a requirement to be that. But the Creator said, you got to keep covenant. You got to keep the contract that the Creator set with us. All right. And the 7th verse, and Moses called called for the elders of the people, and set before them all these words which the Lord had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people unto the Lord. Now, what is important here in that 8th verse, I use the word Nasik, we will do. One word answer. Just from hearing that the elders say that, the representation of the people, Nasik, we will do. All right. Now, what is better than that one word answer is when you go back into the Exodus, the 24th chapter, 7th verse, when they use the word Nasik with Nishma, we will do and we will hear. Because in order to understand something better, you got to actually do it. And then from the actual participation in it, then you can understand it better. And just hearing something and then trying to do it. You might not like to understand it, but just to do it mechanically, because we know God have our best interest at hand. So only in Exodus, the 24th chapter, the 7th verse, it used the term Nasik with Nishma. Here, it's just a one-word answer. Nasik, we will do. Do what? But and that's the answer that was good that Moses reported. He was happy to hear that, because to him saying, mine's not the reason why, mine's to do or die. So sort of what we say today. So this is what he look at, that they really, for this. And the Lord said unto Moses, Lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, and the people shall that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and may also believe thee forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready against the third day. For the third day the Lord will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai, and thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mountain, or touch the borders of it. Whosoever touches the mountain shall be surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him. All right, so no hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the ram horn soundeth long, they shall come up, to the mountain. Now, when we think about this area here, and there's two things, you got Yovel is mentioned here, and then he mentioned about a chauffeur. I'm not, it's not going to get to the part of the Decalogue. Letting you know that you're not supposed to grab anybody that's up there, because that means you're up there as well. You're not supposed to touch them. So stone or shot through. Do you hurl a stone, or do you shoot an arrow at them? All right. So, and we got to think about, if you got to do the execution, wouldn't you be responsible? If the Creator do the execution, then the sanctity is still maintained. So anyway, I hope I didn't get a glitch in that. All right. So as we go, as we go a little bit further in this particular syndrome, it says, and the 14th verse. And Moses went down from the mountain unto the people and sanctified the people, and they washed their garments. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not near women. That's something he added. Come not near women. If the Creator going to address the people, and he tell the men not to come near women, he didn't tell the women not to come near the men. He told the men not to come near the women. And you say, well, what is that? Is the woman's much more receptive to the Creator's divine presence? They're going to maintain that state of holiness a lot better than the men do. That he had to tell the men to stay away from the women, and not the women to stay away from the men. And then if you're worried about, if we say, well, what about if a woman has a manna of women upon him at that time? Well, I would venture to say, can't prove it, but I would venture to say, if all the people are sanctified at that particular time, then I would say one of the great miracles of that time would be that no person there, male or female, is unclean at that time when God get ready to speak at Mount Sinai. That's just my view. We might have difference of opinion, but I would say if he told the men to stay away from women, it can't be simply because a woman goes through the manner of a monthly cycle, or childbearing and stuff like that. So what we find is actually, and also one of the unique things I like to mention more that I always focus on is that, and one of my support systems in reference to that area is that we find that when it comes down to the actual portion of dealing with the women's and childbearing, that we observe the first Pesach in the wilderness. In the first Pesach in the wilderness, that means all males had to be circumcised. All right. What we find also 40 years later, we find that none of the children born in the wilderness, were, circumcised. So that means that at least the first year, I would say, just deducing that no children was born within that first year until after the Mishkan was erected and they observed their first Pesach, because everybody, circumcision wasn't an issue. But in Joshua's time, I tell you, all those that was born in the wilderness would not need to be circumcised. So those are my reason of deduction, in reference to those areas there, about why Moses added this here premises, because it's not about basically neither or childbirth. It's a thing about the men. It's the one, if we're looking throughout our 40-year history, it's the men that messed up the most. We don't read where the women actually messed up. We read about the men messing up through that 40-year period. And sometimes it could be a bunch of things. The easiest one to pull you away from the Creator is a female. So I don't know why Moses add that up, but he made it a little stringent, but that's what he did. All right. And then we get into the Decalogue. I'm just going to skip down to the Decalogue. I only have a couple of minutes. And I'll speak more at it. All right. So you talk about priests and everything like that. We're going to the 20th chapter. And the 20th chapter, it says, when they got ready to get the revelation, and God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God who brought thee out of the land of Egypt out of the house of bondage. All right. The Hebrew term is Anoki. Anoki is actually an Egyptian word. You could say, because normally we say I am in Hebrew, you say Ani. So Anoki is actually an Egyptian term. And, you inflect nouns, but, pronouns, which is, first person singular, nomenclature, which is I, you could say I am, period, like that. And key, putting that down as a, an inflection on, itself could be as or like. So I'm as God or like God, but basically it's, we have a Greek term from the Egyptian term was Anoki. Anoki is, God rules. That's the only one I listen to. I don't deal with no other secular law, only God, itself. That's so it's a society that's ruled by God alone, whatever, you consider it's coming from God. But when we think about the commandments, and people refer to as commandments, and most people that from, say, a Christian background don't start with that as the first command. We don't necessarily find it as a command, but if you think about it, two ways I can present it. One is that if it's first person nominal case coming from one that created it all, he letting you know that your first thing is that to acknowledge God as the giver. Acknowledge him. You're acknowledging God. You're here to meet God. So acknowledge that I'm addressing myself and saying that I am that entity. I am God. And also the thing about that is that it's also saying he bringing out terms, the Egyptian term, and he's saying you came out from Egypt. So I'm gonna let you know, you ain't meeting a different God that, that did the wonders in the land of Egypt, with them 10 plagues. And you ain't meeting a different God to help you cross the Yam Su, a different God that did all this other stuff for you. All right. I'm the one that started out with you from the first trip of Egypt, so therefore, I'm letting you know that you ain't come to meet somebody that you didn't experience to a degree in the land of Egypt. So when we think about Anoki in itself, we find out that the Egyptian thing, and it letting you know, you're familiar where you're from, and you remember what I did for you there, and I brought you out. You owe me, you owe me. We're taken from under the burdens of Egypt to be a servant of the Most High. That's what we've done here, And one of the great things, I just want to bring those out quick because I only got a couple of minutes, and I'm probably going to revisit some of the stuff next week when we get to Mishpatim. But one of the things I like to bring out here that you got basically 620 letters, when you get into the Decalogue, and it's 620 letters. You figure 613 will represent all the law, statutes, and judgments, and the Tanakh, and 7 from the Noachic law. So you look at the rabbinic positive commandments, which is 7. Also, what you find here as we get into it is that you have 5 laws, basically your relationship with the Creator, how you're dealing with the Creator, and then you got 5 that's actually how you deal with your fellow human beings. What you also have here is things that you know, but you don't consider as remembering the Shabbat day, to keep it holy. In other words, is Shabbat day holy? Yes. Only way you could defile it is by not participating in keeping it holy in that sense. It comes here holy, and you could defile the holiness and sanctity of a Shabbat day. So, and it tell you that it's not just for you, it's for everything. So when we look at the Shabbat day, it's not just for you, it's for everything that exists, and we deal with the Shabbat day. So one of the things that we look at in there in reference to the Shabbat day is that it says, remember. Later on, it tell you, Shomea, which means to guard, observe the Shabbat day. Then when we deal with a commandment with a reward, a full reward in it, you're talking about, honor your father and your mother. That itself, it gives a reward on it, where the other commandments don't usually give a reward. Then when we deal with the last one, the most difficult one to observe is covetousness, covering anything from your neighbors. And one of the things about the covenant is that it's commanding an emotion, and we got a command for a positive sense of emotion, which is love the Lord thy God. That's an emotion that's positive, or loving the actual your neighbor as yourself. That's a positive emotion. But when it comes down to a negative, don't do this, don't covet, and it mentions, 6 things, but not to covet in this particular portion concerning your neighbor. And then it said, after that, it says anything. So now if it mentions 6 things, it said, what else could I want that he have? Since those are the main things I would look for. And yet it says anything after that. So we had a discussion concerning about, what about, you're looking for a wife. So you normally you're looking for a wife from somebody else, outside your family. And one of the things when we look at the issue about concerning a wife, truly, you have a desire, of something that belongs to somebody else, under somebody else's family. So therefore you ask, and when they say no, then and you pursue and put them in a situation where you got to get, that he forced to sell her to you or give her to you for some reason or something like that, then then that was conviciously plotted. And then one of the examples to give us about Ahab and Naboth, is one of the things that, he had a vineyard and he was close to the king's palace. And he wanted a vineyard and he wanted to buy it. And he said he would give him extra money for it. And he said, I couldn't sell it. And he looking sad. His wife, famous wife, Jezebel, said, look, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And she plotted, set the man up, Naboth, and had him killed. And the king took possession of it. That's covetousness, and which that's along with murder. And the thing is that coveting usually itself, when you think about covenant, it's like you want what is actually exactly the person has. So I just want to make that clear as well, because sometimes it don't come off clear. Is that I want what you have, not something like that. But also what is more dynamic is that not only did I want what you have, I'm also saying you don't deserve it. And that's the most dynamic thing when you covet something that's of your neighbors. Because if a person got a talent and something like that, you want to try to earn the talent. If you're studying of an individual or that got a craft, you say, I want to learn that craft. So could you put me on to your craft and take me as an apprentice and, later maybe a journeyman. So, because I admire your skills and or whatever the skill is. So that's different, because you say, well, I'm not actually trying to take away what he has. I want him to develop what he has in me, develop so I could try to develop it for myself and put my own DNA on it. So, but when you get to the part of covetousness, coveting, that means automatically, I want what you have. You don't deserve what you have. And I feel slighted that I don't have it. And then one last thing I'm going to speak on, and I'll probably touch on some other stuff as we go forward in the future, is that when we think about these 10 matters that we have here in Exodus, that you have in a sense that all 10 of these could have the penalty of death. All 10 of these things we mentioned, matters have a penalty of death if you violate it. Because a famous Rishonim, Rab Sadia the Gaon, who lives around, I believe around the 10th century, Common Era. He makes a chart tracing all the 613 laws to these 10 commandments. Every law that we read about in the commandments is traced to these 10. So this is like an outline, for all the laws that are going to be that we're going to be upholding to the nation of Israel in the book. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said. Any mistakes been my own, and we just passed a thing about the year of trees, fruit trees, which was last week during that time when the Sidra came up. And tree itself is an unselfish thing, because a tree itself, it provides for everything except for itself. Shade, and also fruit, and so it's always giving. And they'd have an annual thing for the fruit trees, basically dealing with the land of Israel itself. So we ourselves should be more of a giving individual as opposed to a taking individual. So these is one of the things that they do. That was last week, which was the 15th of the month of Shabbat, that we're into now in the Hebrew month. So hopefully I was able to give you some food for thought, and anything else, and any mistakes been my own. Have a good Shabbat, and I'm going to say Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. Thank you for your wisdom, and thank you for blessing us with the understanding that the Most High God has blessed you with. So to everyone out there, please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that anytime we upload a new video, you will be notified. May the Most High God bless you. May you have a great Shabbat sleep. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.